Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Kirkpatrick.
And my name is Ty Whitman.
And we're the hosts of the Beyond the Narthex podcast.
A show where we sit down with members of CK Press and go beyond our narthex and take a deeper dive into the lives of our church family.
Our hope is that each episode will cultivate and encourage new conversations for you, our listeners, with our guests.
Enjoy the episode.
All right, well, we're here with Renata and Jason Durst, and they've been part of our church, long before we started coming to CK Press, and so we're just glad to have you guys here, and they have their son Rowan as well, not joining us on the podcast, but he's also part of this unit, so thank you for being with us. And
thanks for sharing your home with us.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Well, so for those that may not know your family super well, and is there something that you would like to share with us about yourselves that we may not know, the church family may not know? Some fun fact.
You go first.
Yeah, I'll be completely random and say that I am a huge fan of the James Bond movies that have Daniel Craig in them.
Okay, so he's...
Yeah, in fact, I'm still processing the fact that they killed him off in the last movie.
Right.
It's been
Spoiler.
very hard for me. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. That's spoiler alert for those who didn't know.
Put it in the notes.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, trying to figure out who they're going to pick for the next Bond it's kind of emotionally nerve-wracking for me. Yeah. When I watched the first movie with him, Casino Royale, and it's the black and white in the bathroom scene, it's the gritty fight, I was like, standing ovation, loved it. I thought that's how Bond always should have been, not the prim and proper person that he had been portrayed in the previous
with
20
Sean
movies.
Connery, right?
Oh.
And all the others.
Connery and all the others.
Yeah.
Too prim and proper.
Yeah. So very gritty, very practical.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Craig nailed it. And it's a shame it's only 5 movies with him. So huge Bond fan. Huge Bond fan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something to know. Okay, I am not a coffee drinker.
Okay.
So no coffee. Never have had coffee. I think that's going to the dark side. I love tea, and I'm a big fan. I have a routine of Earl Grey tea.
Okay.
And it's double bergamot, not just regular Earl Grey tea, but quality double bergamot. Double bergamot.
Like a double shot? What's a double?
It's a double bergamot. Is this? It's a type of orange.
Oh, okay.
So bergamot is a type of orange.
Oh.
And they have it's not. I mean, some of the fruit has an orange color, but some of it has a total green color. But it's like double the amount of the leaves that come from this bergamot tree, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway, if you have bergamot oil, you have massage oils or whatever, or like scented oils for the bath or something like that. There's bergamot oil or whatever. It's like sandalwood oil or something.
Oh, I bet it smells
great.
great.
And bergamot oil is fantastic. Anyway, so this is double bergamot oil in the tea with some honey and just a thimble of milk.
A thimble?
A thimble
Is
of
that
milk.
a tea phrase?
No, I don't know. No, I'm just using
It's just the amount.
Yeah, just the amount, a
That's
tiny
so
what you
amount.
pour.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
quaint. I like that.
it's
Classy.
the best stuff ever. Anyway, but no coffee.
No coffee.
Maybe no coffee.
Loves the smell of it.
I love the smell of coffee.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I won't and having chocolate covered espresso beans. Fantastic.
Eating those, yeah.
Like you're eating those. It's
Yeah.
fine. And like a coffee milkshake.
Oh yeah.
Is totally
The
great.
flavor.
Totally, but you'd have to have that much cream and sugar to get me to drink coffee.
Okay.
To be able to handle coffee, it's 2% coffee, 98% mixture of sugar and cream, and then I'd be okay with it.
Have you ever had like really good? You said you've never had coffee, so you probably have never dove into like the really fine coffees.
Well, I wouldn't even know.
That have like that have like notes of orange. Maybe there's a coffee with a bergamot.
Yeah, maybe.
Notes.
We've been to the reserve
It's
store.
we have been. That's Starbucks Reserve. He'll say that it's burnt coffee. We have to go.
I
to
don't know, but that's a good coffee. That's
Oh.
so they do their coffee. That Starbucks is not normal Starbucks.
Okay.
So
The reserve.
you remember that from my serman.
Yes.
All right.
Oh.
Right.
Woohoo.
I totally bashed Starbucks in a sermon like
Yes.
3 months ago. Or
It was
4 months
awesome.
ago.
I mean, it wasn't awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was
Yeah.
good. Yeah, but it was hilarious. Little nugget of information on
I love
Ty.
that.
Yeah.
So Ty, is your challenge
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get me to like coffee?
Oh, that's a hard challenge for somebody. Because
well, then you got to get them to like tea.
Right, and my challenge back, I got to get you to like tea.
Well, it's not that I just am not a tea guy. Like, I like it. I really like green tea. Like, if we go to, like, an Asian restaurant, I always want a pot of green tea on the table. That is really good.
That's good.
But when I was young, I used to just put, like, 6 Splenda in my little cup and then put the tea in. And so that was how I got used to it. But
yeah.
You mean a thimble size of Splenda?
A thimble size. Well, no, it was a
6
thimble.
thimbles.
6 thimbles.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's hard to say.
It is, yeah.
I have Renata to thank for getting me into coffee, of all things.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
She turned you to the dark side, but is not there
On
herself.
accident.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Because we were not coffee drinkers.
We were road tripping to her parents over the holidays. This was one of those awful snowy days in Snoqualmie. We stopped in North Bend. She ordered a chai latte, something.
No, it was a London Fog, with the Earl Grey.
Yep.
Yeah.
They do okay. Starbucks does okay
Yeah.
with their London Fogs, but it's not the premium
They,
Earl Grey tea.
they ended up giving her a misto, which was half coffee, mostly coffee, part milk, and we were a mile down the road, and she realized, so she handed it to me, and of course,
I handed
you. We're in the middle of ice Snoqualmie, so I just start sipping it, and I
Yeah.
say, this isn't so bad after I got about halfway through it.
Huh.
And there it
And
started.
That was it.
You know the origin story.
Yeah.
That's
Well
awesome.
said.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm still disappointed by that. I was like, we should go through our entire lives not liking coffee. I was really hoping for that ideal. That was a goal, an optimistic
Just
goal.
to be a little
and it
against the grain
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
one area.
Yeah, in that one area, just to have it one unique thing,
Yeah.
not status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're with the grain everywhere else, Renata.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Conformist.
I'm such
Yeah.
a conformist.
So do you have a Bond, a guy that you or anybody that you think should play Bond?
No.
No.
Like every name that's proposed, I go, no.
Who's the guy that I can only think of him as Charles Minor in The Office?
Is it Idris?
Yeah, Idris Elba. What do you think of
Oh,
him?
Wasn't he Bond?
Yeah.
No,
he
he's been
Wait, I
brought
don't know
up
who
a
that
few
is.
times.
He was rumored for a while. That would work.
Yeah.
That would work.
I think he'd be really
Wow,
good.
I never know
He's
actors'
suave.
names, so that...
Mm-hmm.
I think they gotta get somebody from nowhere.
Oh, interesting.
I think
like a no-name.
a no-name person. I think they have to start from scratch with a new James Bond that nobody knows because there's too many of the current actors that would be that could
point.
work.
But
This person's got to come from nowhere. I think.
interesting.
And just really put their own spin on it.
Yeah.
In their own James Bond way and come from nowhere. I think that they should change with the times and have a total female Bond for the first time in the franchise history.
Has that been talked about?
I'm sure it has.
Yeah.
Oh,
They,
I love that.
In the last movie, they went there with
That one girl.
He retired
Oh.
when that fifth movie starts or thereabouts. He retires,
Oh.
Yeah.
and they have a new 007. They recycled his number to her, to that woman.
To the woman.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then
That's
anyway,
true.
they end up reinstating him.
Yeah, but I don't know. Anyway,
So there was one for half a movie.
for half a movie.
Is this the family movie, or is this mostly like Jason? You're into Bond, or like does Rowan also? Is he
We
into it
haven't.
yet?
I don't think we've. He's watched maybe Casino Royale.
One Casino Royale, maybe.
What, Casino Royale came out in what, 2005?
2006, yeah.
2006?
5, 6, yeah.
Because then,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be interesting though. I've always liked the idea of them going back to show a young M.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that'd be cool. I'm all about that kind of
Long-
going away from the original story. Like I thought that same way with Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do
To get all those
get
prequels
away
or-
from the characters that we know.
Right.
And go back in time or go way forward in time, so we don't have so then nobody feels bad. Like if the new Bond comes out and like I don't like the new Bond, that's gonna happen. But if they do it that way, it's not gonna.
There was a big revolt when Daniel Craig was named back then. There was a whole
Oh, yeah.
website, Daniel Craig is not Bond, and .com I think it was.
Yeah.
People were just railing.
Oh
There's always a reason.
it's
Gotta
so
have
funny
something.
how that happens.
Yeah.
Gotta have something to complain about.
But now they love him.
They do.
I'm sure they do.
Well, I
Maybe.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that you said like characters that we know. Speaking of characters we know you guys
Yes.
and your family.
Mhm.
But if we go back to pre CK Press, you guys you mentioned the era before coffee too. What stands out in your mind as you as a unit, pre CK Press? I mean, what were you guys doing? I remember rock climbing.
Yeah,
You're
that's what I
really
was
into
gonna say.
climbing, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
rock climbing
You're into
was
outdoors.
huge. Outdoors.
When did we start going to CK Press? Was that 2006, 7? We got married in 05.
Yeah.
It wasn't long after that.
It wasn't long after that because we you and I had been living in the area. Then we got married, and I had been visiting a few churches, and then when we got married, we started visiting some churches, and we came in about 2007, I bet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved to Maryland
Yeah.
and went to a Presbyterian church down there,
Okay.
Pax Press.
Pax Press at Patuxent River Base down there. And then we came back, and at the moment that we left, that's when Jim Davis, he was leaving at that moment.
Okay.
So when we moved to Maryland, Jim Davis moved.
Okay.
And then he was moving down to Texas, I believe. Then we went through a couple interims, and then we came back. So we came back in we left in 2008, really.
And back in 10.
Back in 10. So we were only gone for
2 years.
2 years or a year and a half or something like that. And then we came back.
And Lee was here.
And Lee was here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lee Riley. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, I think when we got back, they were still doing a revolving door on the pastors. I remember,
Yeah, I feel like they I don't...
Bang.
Well, the Membanglos, I forget. They were an associate pastor
they were-
under Jim Davis.
Yeah, they were part of the...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they were still kind of around or something. I don't know, or they were just
Anyway.
leaving. I don't know.
But it was all rock climbing for us
Yeah.
in the early aughts, as I like to say.
In the aughts, yeah.
In the aughts, yeah. That's all we did. We lived in East Bremerton behind the Safeway in Blueberry Meadows, and we were in the climbing gym twice a week, every Tuesday, Thursday. I worked there on Saturdays, setting routes, and then met the Rittenhouse, Tom Rittenhouse.
Right.
We used to go to our church. We would meet and climb Saturday afternoon. We lived in that gym.
Yeah, that was
Wow.
That one's not there, right?
No,
No.
It was in Bremerton.
it's a Hoy Kitsap now. Just
Interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
heartbreaking.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Wait,
Great-
so the tall
great for the
structure
kids.
used to be where the climbing wall
Yeah.
was?
Well,
That's
it was a
interesting.
really great gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was such a great thing. I mean, a lot of young military people would travel through, but then you had the core rock climbing young crew in there,
Mm-hmm.
and we would just spend time as a young, in our 20s, just hanging out and getting in community with, it was our
Yeah.
community really
Yeah.
at the time.
I think
It was our community.
Dave Prey and I think we met at that time.
Yeah. Dave Prey and all
Yeah.
of us, and Dave Prey would pop in and we would climb
Yeah.
before he ever married.
You
Beth-
met him back then.
Yeah.
we knew Dave
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
we were even at CK
Yeah.
Press.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
He's an OG.
He's an OG.
He's an OG.
He is. He's an OG.
Yeah.
And he's a climber. He's a climber too.
Yeah.
We can. We can climb now. We can.
Yeah, you
but
can.
we're not. We're rusty.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty old.
No, we're rusty. There's no old.
Nah. Did you guys ever go on any of
Loosening
those
the creeks.
rock and climb? No, rock and
Oh, the
rolls
rockin'.
with the youth group back in the day?
No.
When
I went
Okay.
once.
Mm-hmm.
I went
Yeah.
once.
So obviously you trained at the gym, but did you go rock climbing like in the mountains and that kind of stuff
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah. Central Oregon was our favorite, and then
Smith Rock.
yep,
We'd
State
spend
Park.
a week down there.
yep,
hmm
and then gosh,
Exit 38 and 32 and Vantage
mm,
were the other places that we went.
yeah,
But if you were to break in the rock climbing world, what we did is nothing. So we're kind of like half
There's
one of
always
these.
a deeper level.
There's
isn't
always,
there?
Always
a
is,
way deeper level.
Yeah.
We were like level 1.
Yeah. And everything is that. It's that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like you feel like you're getting really into it, and then the more you dig, the more you realize,
Yeah.
there's
There's so much
a lot
more.
to it.
a lot
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and we bouldered. You bouldered up in Squamish.
Mm-hmm. We did rope climbs up there too, up in Canada.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm.
Up in Canada near Whistler.
near Whistler.
Oh, that's so nice.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool to hear too that the community. I mean, I know we've talked about that some too, and for the young 20s, and
Yeah.
it's weird I can't really say that anymore of
Mhm.
myself. What is this aging that happens?
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah. I mean, I feel like I've heard, when Tyler and I first moved, to the area was like, okay, where do we find the other young adults? They're around, but
Mm-hmm.
it's cool that you found them when you were climbing, and so
Yeah.
clearly they're around, and we have found community. But it just seems like, I mean, have you noticed a shift in that in the greater Kitsap community? Like either there's more opportunity, or you've seen like, well, it shifted from climbing to X, Y, Z or something.
I don't know.
There's a lot of niches here. Like there's a big board gaming community between the place in Silverdale and Bremerton. I see that in the area. That climbing gym closed, but the people who used to work there reopened it on Bainbridge. It's now Insight. It used to be Island Rock Gym. And then they opened a gym down in Bremerton too.
And
It's all part
Bremerton's
of the
doing
same-
well because
yeah.
they have a lot of young, just the military from the base there. There's actually quite a little young crowd popping in there on a regular basis, and they seem somewhat like they know each other, hang out with each other.
That community.
So I think it's still around.
Yeah, you just have to. I think, like he's saying, there's niches or niches.
We're very domesticated now.
Yeah, we don't know anymore.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah, it's hard to find that group or to find that community. But it does seem to be when you go and do something that other people are interested in. And like gyms like that where you need cooperation. I've never rock climbed ever. But I would imagine
You haven't. That's surprising.
that you need, I guess I've done it once at a camp
Sure.
with the youth like 3 years ago.
Yeah. Because if they're doing it, of
4
course
years
you're
ago.
going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they were having to rappel off a wall, and like 4 students were really nervous about it. And I was like, look, if I can do it, you can do it. But you need somebody else to hold the rope for you to like kind of what's that considered?
Called a belayer.
Belayer. Yeah. I mean, essentially they're spotting you, and so it is. There's community there. So I feel like finding those things would be really beneficial. But it is harder now, especially after COVID, that the majority of people want to stay inside or stay in their bubbles and or go rock climbing maybe just with
people
themselves
they know.
or somebody they know, one person they know or something like that. But
There's bouldering. Bouldering you can do without.
without
You can be
anybody.
a singleton, and you can just pick up with who's ever in the gym, and you can do it by yourself, but then you can meet friends that way.
And you have
at the
nothing
gym.
attached
Not
to it,
for
right?
bouldering. Yeah. Bouldering, you don't have to have quite all the gear.
Short height.
You don't go as high.
You don't go as high, and you just fall.
Yeah.
Those Netflix documentaries, or just any documentaries of the boulder. I can't remember his name. Yes, as Alec Honnold.
Alex Honnold.
Yeah.
He free soloed El Capitan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I just think
those
of
are crazies.
what is it, 127 hours or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Getting
That
his
one.
arm stuck,
Yeah. I think of that movie with James Franco, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to go out in the woods. Or
You know what's crazy about that is where I went to college, where he got his arm stuck was just an hour from my college, my undergrad, and it was during the time I was there, and I didn't find out until like a year later that whole story, and I was like, it's crazy. And his background, like I think he was going to be a computer engineer, and then he quit, and he says, I don't want to be in this kind of desk office, so then he started working at an outdoor shop. And I think it's the same. Maybe it's not the same story. Anyway, I think it's because he's Colorado, right? We're talking about the arm.
I don't know.
Arm stuck in the rack, and he sawed it off with like a Leatherman, right?
Yeah.
Like it's that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy, amazing. I love the story, but also crazy.
You're like
Crazy, but like crazy.
an hour from you.
Wow.
Yeah. So so I knew. Yeah, it's crazy.
Did you feel so like? I feel like climbing. There's so many ripe opportunities for. I think if I did climb, I could come up with like 6 sermon
Just being out there, creation.
images.
And,
Yeah. I know. I mean, Tyler's even used. I mean, his hiking as sermon illustrations at times. So I'm sure climbing has the same thing. But for you guys, did you ever connect? Was there any intersection between the climbing aspect and faith at all, or no? Or was it just something you did for fun? And you look back now, and you can kind of make those connections.
Yeah.
I started climbing because I had a roommate that was into it, and that was my friend when I moved up here. So if I wanted to hang out with somebody, I went to the gym with him, and then I really got into it because I had a pretty paralyzing fear of heights. So I thought, well, this is a way to get over it. or use the fear of heights to keep me from doing something really silly, like free soloing El Capitan, you know. And
otherwise, you'd be there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been a nice blend that way.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, I've really appreciated the outdoors for that faith-based sort of dynamic. I just really enjoy feeling small, and when you're outside like that, even exit 38, just getting up there by I-90, there's a bunch of lookouts. You can just sit there and watch the traffic on the freeway. You know, the cars look really small from some of those places up there, and it just allows you to disconnect and reconnect, I guess. So that short answer is yeah. But I've kind of grown into it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if I connected too much climbing to my faith. I don't know if I did that too much.
Too much of a pastor question for me to ask.
No, I don't.
You certainly pray a lot probably when you're climbing, right? You're panicking about falling. You probably say this up. I certainly do. Please don't let me fall. Please don't let me fall.
Yeah.
It's a great time to pray.
Yeah.
You're looking at your
Very.
I could reflect back on it, and I can say I can see where I'd match up, you know, concepts of faith or whatever to climbing, and I can reflect back on it, and I can do that. But in the moment of climbing, I'm just trying to, I guess, push myself and see what I can do and stretch my own physical body and at that time, and just see if I can be better than I was the time before, you know? So I guess it was more of a self-improvement thing I was doing, but maybe even on a selfish level, like, no, I want to do this, and I'll just, you know. So I think I almost probably would say it's more of a, because we did it so much, it was kind of a, I don't know.
It's like a thrill and a joy to that.
It's a thrill and a thrill and a joy, and it was selfish maybe in some ways, but not selfish because we stayed in good shape that way. So
I feel like when I got really into, you know, working out and weightlifting and that kind of thing, I can look back now and go, oh, there's so many connections to faith, in the sense that, like, you think you're in control, but you're only in control to a certain extent. Whereas, like, I would imagine with climbing, there's something like to trust. You have to trust that your line is going to do what it's supposed to do, and that your carabiner is going to work, and those kinds of things. But in the moment, if you're pushing a dumbbell up and down, you're not thinking about those types of things. But yeah, there are those kind of connections I'm sure that you can make.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned you'd like to feel small. That's so true, because I feel like I'm piggybacking off that. If I didn't feel small, I would feel as though I need to feel large all the time. And then, therefore, what is the point? Like, for me, what would the point of my faith be, and where is the gravitas there? So to really, like, have perspective, and do you think it's necessary, like, for everyone to feel small to some extent? And to, like, it's such a funny thing, like, find what makes you feel small, but, you know, I mean, it does seem valuable. So
where we were on the East Coast, it was all about careers and jobs, and frankly, there wasn't a lot of natural beauty where we were. And coming here, just even the day hike over to Mount Townsend, was it, that we did a couple weeks ago? Fantastic. And you feel that sense of, it diffuses your self-centered nature, I guess. It's just really nice. And humbling to hike something like that. You get your butt kicked a little bit. So it humbles you that way too.
I can remember on a backpack with Tyler a couple years ago when we were in Switzerland, and, like, we love backpacking. That's kind of been our origin story, you know, backpacking together. My first backpack was with him years ago, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm such a poser. Why am I doing this? Why am I backpacking? I'm an imposter, you know. And this is, like, on the hike, and it's like we've logged miles together, and not since kids. We haven't backpacked in a long time, but it's just like, it's a funny thing, you know, when you're stuck in that moment and you're just mentally, you can, like, check yourself out or psych yourself up so much. But I certainly have felt in those moments just out where it's truly just your body and your companion, and you're together, and whether it's, like, the thrill and, like, the challenge of making sure you can at least gain the final, like, leg of elevation, it's like you feel so small and inadequate. And it was a good feeling. Like, I wouldn't trade all those tears and sweat for anything. But in the moment, I was like, I can't do this. But it's such a good thing, like, to feel that you just can't at times. And yeah. Well, and so Rowan's gone with you guys too.
Mm-hmm.
Is he enjoying the outdoors and
he
skiing?
does.
I remember you guys shared. When did you go skiing with him for the first time?
Pre-COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a little snowboarder with me.
Okay.
That's something I've been getting back into.
That's fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he likes it, or if he just does it because
his parents are telling him that we need to get outside.
We'll see. Still an open question on that one.
But still,
but he's enjoying it more now that he is able to. He's able to spin 360 around on his board at slower speeds and not just go downhill. So he likes to show off that way.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I take an annual trip with some old college buddies. Well, we've just started this. We've done 2 now. So this will be year 3 coming up. So Rowan sees that, and I think he's interested in learning what we do when we go.
That's cool. So I guess moving from things that you guys enjoy doing, and I'm sure you enjoy your jobs, but what, just for our listeners, what do you do on your day-to-day? What's your day-to-day life look like in job-wise?
You can take that one. Yeah.
Okay, I get up early, 5 o'clock, kind of early, and usually my brain is up at 4:30, and I'm problem solving for the entire day, all the things that logistically have to happen, and I line it all out, and I find all my nuggets of time, and then I execute all day long, and everything has its little time and place, and then then I go to work. I teach, so teaching, and then you get done, and I pick up Rowan in the afternoon. I take care of Rowan in the afternoon. So I have afternoon duty, is what we call it. I have the afternoon duty, and then make dinner, and I'm pretty adamant about trying to make as many home-cooked meals in a week and not eating out or having pre-made food that I just somewhat slapped together. So home-cooked meals, we sitting at a dinner table, and the dinner table is a pretty important sacred place for me, and is a place where we sit down and things get turned off. We may have instrumental music going on in the background, but it's a time to sit down and be a family, and then we talk about our day as a family. That's a big moment, is that we talk about our day as a family, and then after that, you clean up dinner, which I always appreciate.
I'm on cleanup duty.
You're on cleanup duty.
You cook, I clean.
Yeah, cook and clean, and
Fantastic.
then
No, really.
It's a good system.
It's a fit.
If you love it, good.
Yeah.
That's great. For both of you.
We were meant for each other in that
For that
regard.
And then when you're cleaning up, I'm helping Rowan with whatever, and we're talking about schoolwork, or we're basketball practice. So either we're zooming off to trumpet practice or whatever. So we're off to his activities at some point, or meetings or something like that. And then at nighttime is a time for I sit down with Rowan and we read books, and we read a chapter of the Bible, and then we read some kind of book that we're reading. And right now it's Timeline by. Is it Michael? I think it's Michael Crichton, the ones that does Jurassic Park. But he also wrote the other book called Timeline, which I think is fantastic. The prologue in Timeline is amazing. Anyway, but Timeline's a cheesy book, but the prologue's way better. So anyway, so we're reading that book right now. But and then we go to bed. And I usually, what ends up happening is I fall asleep while reading the book. And Rowan stupidly stares at me falling asleep. And then probably, if the lights don't go off, or I turn the lights off or something, and then I sleep in the chair that's next to his bed. And then I finally get up like at 11 o'clock and crawl into our bed. And then I get back up at 4:30 or 5, and we start all over again.
That's also a great thing, because then I get to sleep with the bed kind of to myself
for about an hour.
And it's just nice. And when you come crashing in, it's no big deal.
It's no big deal.
Broken it in.
It all works out. Yeah. So pretty much nonstop. every
It's
day.
nonstop.
Yeah.
Is what? Yeah. I mean, you're up at 4:35. Yeah.
And so you're teaching AP Bio, right?
Yeah, I teach science, so
Yeah,
biology
yeah.
and AP biology.
You teach both.
I teach both,
Okay,
yeah.
nice. And you just had your first year of AP Bio last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
It was good.
Yeah.
I am a little rusty at my more technical biology information. So it was good. I definitely have areas that I need to improve on, but it was a good start. It was a good start for the next set of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's exciting.
yeah.
And high school's fun.
It is fun.
That's it. Because before, was it 7th or 8th grade?
It was 8th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe not.
It's not too much of a change because I'm teaching 9th. I mean,
Okay.
biology classes are like mostly 9th and 10th graders.
Okay.
But then AP biology is a mixture of 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what kids' pathways are and all that. So, yeah. And then, of course, we have meetings and at
Yeah.
night sometimes or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So Thursday nights are a big night because we grocery shop on Thursday nights. We do eat out on Thursday nights, and we go to trumpet lessons.
Yeah.
So all that is taken out in one night.
One full swoop.
One fell swoop. Yep. And
Can find us at either Silver City or Montezuma's.
Montezuma's are the two places
Yep.
Nice.
on,
That
on
area?
Thursday night.
Right.
Thursday
Yeah.
nights.
Thursday nights.
5:00. That's where we are.
Yep. 5 o'clock sharp.
Usually.
Well, I like that predictability Thursday.
Yeah.
You have to.
We'll find you.
the
Right.
the trumpet lessons drive that time.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Actually, this year it might be different for the first 2 months because we now have them enrolled in sailing lessons.
Mm.
And that's going to get out at 6, which means we're going to have dinner in the car. And he's going to eat it on the way to trumpet lessons.
Oh wow.
So that's how that's going to work until the end of November.
Mm.
It's all a big puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what time do
Yeah.
you wake up, Jason? I don't get to know this.
I wake up at 6.
You wake up at
I
6.
do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I like how now Renata has taken the interview position
Yeah.
on. So
Sorry.
please take it. No, I'm excited.
I think everybody knows her personality type, and probably isn't too surprised by that.
That's from I'll just drink tea.
Yeah, I work at Keyport, so I'm an engineer out there. Studied engineering, and I work a typical 9 to 5 desk job sort of environment. It's not a 40-hour a week sort of job though. It's a lot of hours, and it's I don't know, just a moment's notice. And it's what I like about it is, it's not the corporate emphasis on profit, shareholders, things like that. You're working on something that's really providing a benefit to people in uniform and ultimately our way of life. So when something happens at 4:00, it's hard to not stay there and want to focus on it because it matters.
Mm-hmm.
So I fall into that trap a little bit, and we've had a lot of organizational changes at Keyport over the last 4 years, where it's been a lot. It's been a lot of hours behind the scenes working on that, and COVID actually kind of helped because we had a lot of changes to our IT infrastructure where we could work from home a lot and all those things, and came with its own pitfalls because you never stop working if you're working from home. But I'm pretty much in the office every day, mostly 8 to 5, 9 to 5 is kind of what I try to do. As Renata mentioned, in the mornings, I'll be online for an hour or two, then Rowan gets up and I'll get him out the door. And as I'm getting him out the door, I just keep driving in. And I know she's got him on the back end. So that's kind of how that goes. But the group at Keyport, it's unmanned undersea vehicles. It's other systems that we use for identifying submarines and training crews how to look for submarines, and then command and control systems. So think operators sitting at computer screens and looking at data and looking for stuff. That's what I'm a part of. A group of about 300 people or so. That's what it is. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Has that stayed pretty consistent? Well, you said the last 4 years has been a lot of changes. So the group
Yeah.
of 300, you've seen a lot of.
So I was in the weapons community and saw that we were doing a lot of sustainment work for UUVs with the weapons community, and it was suboptimizing both sides of the house, so to speak. So I said, hey, we should really break this out and make it its own division, which is a second level organization. So that was the first org change. So
Okay.
we did that. That was maybe 40 people. And then we created a department, which was maybe 100 and maybe 200 people. And that was 2.5 years ago. And we've been growing, so now we're at 300 people.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been consistently scaling.
Mm-hmm.
Consistently dynamic.
So you're part of the Navy then?
No, I'm a civilian.
You're
Civil
a civilian.
service. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where sometimes I'm like, okay, are they
Yeah.
all one together?
Right.
So.
Yep. So that's a good question. We're embedded with people in uniform that actually operate the systems. So we're embedded intentionally to get real-time feedback from them on how they use the systems and what we could do to make them better.
Mm-hmm.
And we're civilians because we're part of the acquisition corps. So we write specifications and put things out for contract, and sometimes we'll build things ourselves. Sometimes we go to industry and then we oversee what industry's doing, and that all has to be inherently governmental, in-house, not a contractor scope.
Is there a lot of travel that comes with that too?
Yeah, there can be. Not as much as when we lived on the East Coast,
No,
but
Why's that?
yeah.
There was more travel on the East Coast.
Yeah, I burnt out on the East Coast. To answer your question about this job, it's maybe once a month. I'm gone typically, but sometimes it's compressed. But when we were living on the East Coast, we were talking about having a family, and is Southern Maryland the right place for that? And it would have been fine, but it wasn't ideal. So we were having a lot of conversations about that. And I was on my 11th week of 17 weeks of being gone to different places. And not consistently Monday through Friday, but some of those were day trips from like the DC area up to Long Island or down to Florida. And I was in the Jacksonville airport, and I had a moment where I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. I was just on complete autopilot.
Right.
Absolutely going through the motions. More so than, I guess I have moments like that now when I'm brushing my teeth and stuff, and I don't realize I'm doing something.
Yeah.
But it's a little concerning when you're like getting off an airplane and you're going to get a rental car and you don't even really think about it. And I kind of had a panic attack. Like, I don't know. I know airports better than I know where I live.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a realization that we probably needed to refocus a bit. So once a quarter, and typically when I travel, it's to really cool places like San Diego or Hawaii or Guam, and that's nice.
Yeah.
So it's better than Long Island or that sort of thing. So yeah.
It was nice though, living off of all your flyer points,
your
hotel points.
Yeah, when we moved back here.
We moved back here 2 years. We could just pretty much go anywhere and just spend like
That's
hotel points for free
Yeah.
and not spend any
we were
money because
free-rolling.
you had banked so much
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was nice, but it came with a price.
Mm-hmm.
The fruit
Yeah.
of the flurry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems that I have like two things that are floating in my head, but the first thing that I want to look at is, it seems for you guys, family time really matters. Like you say, like that time at the table is like you said sacred.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What is it for you? Is there something like that's tied to your backgrounds and like growing up that caused that? Is so why is that so important to you?
Well, we both grew up where dinner time was dinner time.
Yeah.
So we both grew up in Wyoming, and I don't know if it's part of the Wyoming culture, because it seemed like every family and all of our classmates, like dinner time was dinner time. You sat down and it was a time to check in with each other. I think, and I feel like that's Wyoming, but I don't, maybe it's not, I don't know, but it's a time to everyone, at least in Wyoming, I have this perception, I don't know if it's quite accurate, so I don't want to speak for what everyone did, but it's like in Wyoming, if you're a rancher or you're a farmer or you work on an oil rig all day or you're a coal miner, you're gone a chunk of the day. And the only time you're going to see your family is at dinner time. And that's when everyone's awake and everyone can have a conversation with each other. And it's where the cowboys take their hats off, and everyone says prayer. Whether you go to church every Sunday or not, it's where you say prayer. Even the town and the schools, like there'd be a chili cookout sometimes on a school night, and everybody in town would come to the chili cookout with cinnamon rolls, we'd have chili and cinnamon rolls, which I hear is a Wyoming thing and so
Sounds
odd and
really
weird.
nice.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
So it was just part of how we grew up. And for me, thinking back on it, it was a really important time for me, to get to know my parents, especially as a teenager. And my dad would always ask, "What'd you learn today at school?" And I could never say, "I don't know." So he would not accept "I don't know" at the table. Like, "No, you did more than that, so you better spit it out." And so it was a time to, like, you need to reflect on what you did that day, you know, as a human being, and we need to have a conversation about it, and we need to talk about to each other and each other's lives, and we turn off the TV. We couldn't have the TV on during that time. And then when we started dating in high school, it was the same in your family, where everybody was called to the table. We all said our prayers, and then we dug in and we talked and we laughed and made fun of ourselves or whatever, and I don't know, remembered old family memories of trips or whatever we felt like talking about at the time. So I don't know. And then usually watched episodes, you know, maybe it was Friends after dinner, or I don't know what. I mean, at that time it was TV, right? And there was no internet to your TV, so everyone bought cable. So you if you didn't have sports or activities that night, it'd be like, "Oh, Frasier's on,"
Whatever's on,
TGIF,
yeah,
with the show with Urkel.
Oh,
Family Matters.
Family Matters.
Family Matters.
You know, so you'd watch those after dinner, you know, and then you'd go to bed. You'd go home and go to bed, whatever. So
my dad was gone a lot though. He worked swing shifts, so he'd be unless it was his days off, he wasn't actually there for dinner.
yeah.
So whether it was days or nights, he wasn't home.
So the times when you guys could have dinner, it was really important. But even so, when your dad wasn't home, did you guys ate at the dinner table?
Oh,
yeah, there was
never like TV trays and random whatever. No, it was
get up.
a centralized effort. Yeah.
To have dinner at the table. So, because sometimes you just get too busy. I think people get too busy and they don't recognize that family time. I mean, it's your smallest unit in our society.
Yeah.
And in that smallest unit, you have to really take care of each other personally.
Yeah. Right.
So if you don't have that connection, you've lost 90% of what family is about, in my opinion. I mean, it could be lunch, I guess, but I mean, who if parents are working, it can't be lunch. So the only meal that's going to really ever work that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I think that's what drives me crazy. Having moved up here, hearing about how many sports and how many meetings get plugged between 5 and 6 o'clock. Like, I find that insulting and offensive on many levels. That there are many activities at that time of day, and how awful that is for any family trying to choose between having a home cooked meal and a family time.
Yeah.
But then I find that I don't think people care anymore.
Right.
Or it's not that they don't care. They just don't see it as a valuable effort to make it a sacred time. And I'm still adjusting to that culture, shift in culture that I have found up here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and with, I mean, Rowan's going into middle school, right? And so I'm sure with his friends too. I mean, there's probably many families that also hold the same values, and but I'm curious if you're also finding right now that it's an anomaly that, like, except for one night in the week, dinner is still like that's the value, and that is constant. But I'm sure in his circles too, like that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
Yeah.
It is for some.
Sure.
I mean, there's definitely a chunk of families I still think are having dinner together.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah. But for some, they're like, what? You guys do that?
But there's the effort too. It's like if you don't start off like right from the get-go, either as your unit of 2 before Rowan, or like really early on once that baby's here, it's like it does seem like it's harder like to gain that momentum. Yeah, or the habit. So yeah, you guys have been you just seem you are very intentional people, and so it seems like if you have a value that's paying off right now. And I mean, has there been something? Is there a dinner that comes to mind and you're like, that was a nugget of like a golden nugget there, you know, and talking to Rowan. And you don't have to share anything that he wouldn't want you to share either, but just
I just remember watching his personality come out. And that was, he would we'd talk about something, and he'd ask a good question of something he observed, and we would have a good conversation about it. I don't know that I have a specific example, but just from his mannerisms and what he would want to engage on, it was always really nice to see that. And I would have missed all that in the hullabaloo of the day. It would have been going too fast. But so I guess it's just kind of watching him grow up. Like that's where you
get to watch the growth of your own child in a way. If they're at school or you're just not paying attention, you'd miss that.
Yeah.
When he was younger, he used to hum subconsciously when he ate.
When he liked the food, he would hum, and he would just he'd be oblivious to the fact that he was doing it. But he doesn't do it anymore. But
very rarely. He'll still just
he might buy ice cream, and then I might hear it.
Cereal.
He doesn't. See, I missed that in the morning.
Yeah.
I didn't need to know that.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. There's so many things that there's so much that happens. It's so in those even if it's just 30 minutes at the dinner table, so many different conversations that take place, whether it is just you and your spouse or like when I was growing up, it was the same way. Like we had to have dinner together at my dad and my stepmom's house. That's what it was, and we just had so many really great conversations, and your relationship grows and stretches and changes, and it is a sacred place. And you think about the fact that like so many different things, I mean, in scripture, but then just throughout, you would imagine throughout the history of the church, that so many sacred moments that happen around food. Like why would you neglect that in your family if even if maybe you can't actually physically do it every day, finding those moments. And getting to know Rowan, as his now youth pastor, I would imagine he'd be very inquisitive at dinner.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And like that would just probably spark conversations between you two as well. Like oh man, he asked a question I would have never thought.
And ironically, sometimes at dinner after work is the last place I want to have those conversations.
Yeah.
I'm so tired.
And you just have to level with him. It's like, buddy, I'll check in with you after dinner on that one. We just
that.
Give me some time to think about that. That's a heavy one. Yeah.
Did you have a second question?
I did, but you guys both. One of the things I was thinking about is you both work in. You work for the government.
Federal, state.
And they're both, I would imagine, institutions that would make it difficult to wear a big red "I'm a Christian" flag. So, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but have you been able to find routes? I always ask this question for people that work in government jobs, or especially in schools. Like, have you been able to find those ways to maybe let your faith kind of come through, whether it just be, hey, I'm just going to kind of give the Christian morals and platitudes subliminally. I can't say that word ever, but everybody knows what I mean. I don't know. What is that like for you guys? Has it been tough?
There's a huge, I guess I hope in my heart that it's obvious.
Yeah.
But I know it's not, because then there's moments I get impatient and I become too adamant about something, or I'll become stubborn about something. But hopefully it's obvious most of the time, that my sustainment in my job as a teacher, and that even though the job is stressful, that I don't wear stress and maybe in a different way than others, or I still have the just the endurance to keep up without letting it sink me. And so I guess I always hope that, but I don't know if people can recognize that. And maybe I'm not letting it through enough. I don't know. But there are times when, if a colleague brings it up, like last year we were at lunchtime and I had a colleague who mentioned, yeah, I believe that there's something greater out there, beyond. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a Jesus freak. You know, and I'll
Yeah.
you know, it's a casual, I agree with you. I'm confirming that I also have a belief system, and I'm of the Jesus, you know, I don't know,
Fan
way. I'm the Jesus fan club here, and you know, or I'll say, oh yeah, I you know, am a Sunday school teacher, or you know, I am part of this church or whatever, and you know, we'll compare notes, like what church are you part of, or something like that. And then if others happen to be listening that don't go to church, then they can eavesdrop at that time. I certainly do not at all push it whatsoever. Like, it really has to be instigated by somebody that's not. Like, I'm never instigating that conversation. And for certainly with students, students will ask really great questions, and they'll say, you know, well, what do you think? And I'll say, okay, I'm putting on my personal hat. I'm not putting on my teacher hat. And I will separate, this is my hat, and this is my personal habit. This is what I do. And I say that. I'll say, you know, especially if I go through evolution, that's when I get like a lot of questions. And so I'll say it really works all together. If you can understand both, it really does fit all together quite nicely. There's really no discrepancy in my, So, so I say that, but I say that's my teacher hat. And I'm not my teacher hat. I'd say that's my personal hat, you know, and there's no way that's going to be on any test, you know. But then sometimes I've had students in the past who would sit in my room during lunch, and then we would have some conversations during lunchtime, and they would ask me questions. Well, how do you think about this, or how do you feel about that, or something like that, you know. And even some of the really toughest kids, you know, Mr. What was before the Big Bang Theory? I'm like, well, that's kind of my question too, you know. Like, that's what I think. There always has to be something to start something. You can't have nothing. I'm like, that's kind of what I think too. So, you know, like, it's just they pop up randomly, and when they pop up randomly, I use the opportunity. But outside of that, I don't. Otherwise, I just try to be, I guess, the salt of the earth, even though I might make it 80% of the time. 20% of the time, I'm not salt of the earth.
That's well said.
It's a pretty
well
good,
put.
It's a good ratio, 80 to 20.
It is.
80-20.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm not. Maybe that's a little bit.
No, I'm sure you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm over exaggerating.
You know, it's funny. I'd be curious to ask others what they think about that, because I am very pragmatic, and getting back to feeling small. I got into public service not intentionally. In the early 2000s, there was a little mini recession a lot of people forget about, and long story short, ended up here. And when you're a public servant and you're doing something that is really a deterrent to something else that would affect a person's way of life, you're kind of living through your actions, and you're kind of showing that you believe in fundamental freedoms for people, and which I think gets to some core tenets of Christianity. In the workplace, I don't consciously mention it for a couple of reasons. You know, it's politically charged, and it turns folks off, and I got to be mindful of that. But I've worked at other places where the opposite was true, and some folks were very adamant about their affiliation, and you had to kind of be affiliated with a particular denomination to advance in certain situations. So it has some ugly instantiations out there. But when we're out with friends, and you know, if we're out at a barbecue with coworkers or something, I'll make a mention of our church, or Rowan part of a youth group or something like that. You know, I'll make a casual data point, and that's frankly as far as I go.
So I feel like a lot of people probably, and it maybe, I don't know if you do this, but I feel like a lot of people that are in jobs where like maybe it's really difficult or not easy to share their faith, they feel like maybe they're not, like they hear preach the gospel all the time, or share your faith, and they're like, I can't. But the way that you guys both kind of described the way that you just live your lives, as you're like, I'm just going to live out my faith, be the salt of the earth. I feel like that's the sticking point right there. Like, that's what we should be doing. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's encouraging should be encouraging to a lot of people that are listening. That just by living your life as a follower of Jesus, who loves him and knows that you're loved by him, like that could do so much for the people around you.
Yeah.
So
Quiet confidence. Somebody mentioned it to me one time. Yeah. Quiet confidence. Yeah.
That's good.
And I imagine that as companies and industry goes into like all these leadership things, there's so much in leadership and getting people to work together that requires the fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah.
And being a leader in an organization that you actually have to model it, you have to do it. And although it may just be called leadership values,
Right.
you know, or whatever,
that's a good way to summarize what I was, just to piggyback on that a bit. We all talk about diversity in organizations and how important it is. Well, if think about religious diversity as being one area, to really go after that and embrace it and incorporate into your organization, you have to be respectful of it. And there are people in my office space that are not Christians, and who am I to tell them right or wrong? So I'm not qualified on either side of that coin. So I just leave it alone. Yeah.
just
That's
be
good.
friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Just be friends with people.
Yeah. Be kind.
Right.
Be gentle.
And that
Self-control.
That's
That sounds familiar.
That's
Yeah.
that alone is a lifetime.
Again, 80% of the time.
It is. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Another 20%, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had maybe it was the second year I was at the school I used to teach at, and one of the students was like, "Miss K, your husband's a pastor? That makes you the first lady."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Black student, and she was really involved in her church, and I was just like, "Wow, you flatter me, girl." Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but you never do
That's
know, because
awesome.
what's gonna come up and what's gonna spark something, and then from that point on, like certain individuals, like they'll evangelize for you, and then they know,
will,
and they're like, "I
Yeah.
love Jesus," and
Yeah.
That's true.
But well, so your days are so filled. I can't remember how you said it, but if you wake up at 4:30 and you're visualizing the whole rest of the day and problem solving, yet your family still makes room for others, so you're hospitable too. We're getting to enjoy your deck, and then also, just getting to have conversation.
Yeah.
Hosted the elder deacon dinner. You open up your home and your space. So why? I feel like your family would have every excuse to say, "Gosh, we're busy. We can't make it Sundays. We can't." Rowan can't be involved in youth group, and so why is it? And I don't mean to ask this question coming from a place of we are coming from leadership at CK Press, but you have been faithful to a faith community and to your family, in the best way that you can answer and feel comfortable answering. Why is it why does it matter to you?
That's kind of interesting. We've never had conversations about consciously doing that. I guess I'd flip that around and just kind of ask why not, would be maybe the better question to ask. Renata's by far the more social out of us too. She mechanically, we're putting those things on the calendar a month or 2 months out when everything looks wide open, crystal clear, and we're like, "Oh, it'll be easy." And every week, especially during the school year, when we hit Friday, I'm thinking, "Good grief,"
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would do it any other way. When you interact with those folks and you get that conversation, you really get a lot of good perspective in the world, and it's a nice reminder of what you have and what others have and how to help each other out. I know it's just a way to gain perspective for me. I've always enjoyed that.
The faith component we're talking about.
Yeah, and really in general, we also have the whole neighborhood over every so often for parties, and other houses do different holidays, and we all kind of share around, and even just talking with folks and just getting to know them at their level, and just respecting each other as people is kind of the why. I don't know. I never really thought about that before. Just seemed automatic, but that's just something we would do.
Yeah, but why do we feel going to church every Sunday or being
There are multiple
why are we
whys.
commitment? Yeah. So, I feel strongly about going to church, and I think because I don't really believe anything in this world is sustaining or satisfying, and that anything can give real peace. And for us as a family emotionally, and for my own son, like we can have careers in teaching, careers in engineering, careers, I don't care what we're doing, but careers in anything, but all of that is fleeting. And I am not, and because we're small, really, when you think of the grand scope of things, going to a place where others worship that we are small, that there is a God that's bigger than us, and that our life isn't about us, really. As there's a much bigger picture and a much bigger story here that's unfolding, and we maybe just be a small moment in time in this passage, in this journey, and that we owe our allegiance to this God. And so Rowan needs to understand that, and we need to keep that as a priority. And we cannot lose it. And there's so many things to distract us. And yeah, war's going to happen, epidemics are going to happen, but it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter in the end. The only thing that to me that really matters at the end of it all is that we discovered God, or God helped us discover God, and that we stayed the course. And for me, it's the truth, right? So to not make time for that, and to not be committed in a serious way to that, I don't know. I think I'd feel more depressed than I already am about the world. I mean, really. I mean, I would lose my brain. I'd lose my mind. I think I'd lose everything.
Because grounding.
Right. And I wouldn't even care. Like, I wouldn't care if I didn't come home for dinner. I wouldn't care if I didn't show up for one day for my job, or I wouldn't have a way to care, because I swear all of it comes from God, because I'm so frustrated with things. Like, it has to come from someplace that's not me, because if I were to unfold and look at my own opinions about the world, my own personal opinions, they're not very good. And so the only thing that I can account for sustainment and peace and joy and continuing a will to live really would have to be from God, because I don't think I could go on.
It's so perceptive, because it's our orientation.
Yeah.
And
I
our
know.
compass. Yeah.
Right. So I guess I feel that strongly about it.
Yeah. It's very similar to the last two sermons. I know this will air many weeks after our Daniel series.
Maybe we should shuffle it forward.
but I mean, Daniel 11, Daniel 12, Tyler and I both kind of touched on the fact that, like, if you look at the world like devoid of God, like, it makes sense to fall into nihilism, that, like, nothing matters. But that because he is who he is, and he orders our lives in such a way, and he has ordered the world in such a way, and he is who he is. He's good and trustworthy, and he loves us, that he actually makes the things that we do worth doing.
And what a gift to give to a child.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To someone who you're raising. What a gift to show, and hopefully they discover. I don't want to force it. Never do I want to force it, but to show that there are things that are going to be hard, and mom and dad are going to be gone, or he will live his life in whatever direction he does, and we won't be around, and things will probably be despairing to him in some way, and that his stability of who he is has to be found in something that's true, that's real, that's a place of love and joy.
It's peace,
Yeah, it's peace.
Yeah.
That they can they can live on and continue to exist and fight the good fight.
Yeah.
And then we can pass on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good gift.
That's well
Good
said.
gift to give, yeah.
Both of you, thank you.
Yeah.
We probably touched on it some too. I mean, I want to give you both a chance as well. If you had, one of the questions we usually ask is if there's passions. I can't remember what one of our guests had said once. Instead of passions, maybe she had said interests, or take that word however you'd like. You know,
yeah.
Something, you know, that just inspires life within you. That, you know, passions that also intersect with your faith. And Ty alluded to this a little bit in an earlier question. But if you have anything that you want to share, we can go there now.
It's outdoor activities for me.
Yeah.
I mean, whether I'm snowboarding down a hill and, you know, completely in solitude, or I'm hiking with the family and we're threatening Rowan to keep moving or he'll not get a fruit snack, or, you know, just whatever it is. I really find a lot of deep satisfaction in that, and it's just rejuvenating, and it kind of brings that whole full circle, full cycle around to me. Yeah, so I'm gonna think more about that.
Well, you've said a few times that you feel closer to God when being outdoors. That, like, you feel like you find that peace in that God moment.
And when I think about all those experiences, it's really about the stimulation. This world, even, you know, these walls, there's just so much input all the time. And even when I'm washing the dishes, I've got my headphones on and I'm listening to something, educational or not, and it's never not on. And a good intersect that I've had with our church is several years ago now, we had the men's retreat over in the Leavenworth area. This was pre-COVID. And just helping out with the rock climbing, and just being with the guys, and nobody's taking themselves seriously. We're right there by the stream there in Icicle Canyon, and it was just good camaraderie, and guys got to know each other, and we had a good time, and we went out and had a beer afterward. It's
really nice.
That was really, really nice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Passion and interest. I guess where my passion and interest, I feel like I can tell myself I get the best of both worlds being a science teacher, because I know it, and then being at our church at the same time. I get to understand God's creation from a spiritual sense, and then I get to understand God's creation from a mechanical, scientific, like I say more of a mechanical, empirical sense, and then I feel like, oh, I've got 2/3 of it down or something, or I've got maybe
That's awesome.
probably like 2/16 of it down, really. But you know, I think I grew closer to God in college when I became a scientist, and so just this idea of how does science match with our faith, and the long-going journey of that in my life, and I find it passionate, and I'm interested in it. And I geek out on it, and I fester on it, I guess, in an obsessive way, and I probably am coming up with my own theology that's not sound at all in my own head.
You're a seeker. I love it.
Yeah. So I guess I enjoy those pieces, you know, and we like to delve into history and the validity of the Bible, and how the Bible was translated, and how did the Roman culture, you know, how were the scrolls even? We love diving into that stuff. So those are topics that,
especially since the last 3 years or so since Tyler took over, you know, and then your addition as well, Ty. I even find myself this past Sunday, you stayed home with Rowan. He wasn't feeling well. We have the church service on. I wouldn't have done that 10 years ago. So just the informative nature of that, and just putting it in context is really that hits me pretty hard. I really appreciate that. I've learned a lot over the last 3 years.
It's been good.
And I'll give a shout out to John Haberlin too.
John.
Sure.
He met with us for, I don't know, an hour and a half every Wednesday night there for maybe 6 weeks.
Wow.
Walking us through the history of the Bible and Old Testament, New Testament, transition period, all that.
It was really nice for us, because even I had been debating a lot of those
I need to have it all over again.
We need to do it again, but yeah.
But yeah, if I could give some kudos to our church and helping to
right
make it real.
Yeah, it's an authentic, right? It's not just a self-help.
Yeah.
Like because I mean, at some point in a Christian's journey, you have to, you get past I believe that God exists and I believe that Jesus came to save our sins, but then you're like, okay, so how does this work? You know, and then and then like there's some not great stuff in the Old Testament, and like how do you reconcile what the Bible is saying and just like understanding like this is poetry. You interpret it different. You don't interpret it literally or concretely, right? And there's certain books you do, and there was sandwich. We were going through some book about every message was sandwiched. There was what was that? It was something.
Was it in the song?
No, Mark does that.
Mark.
Oh, yeah. The Mark and sandwich.
Yes, the Mark and sandwich. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, and just understanding how to even, you think you could just read the Bible chapter by chapter, but if you're not an English major and you don't know like literary tools, it's helpful, to just, okay, I don't need to take this precisely,
right? Yeah,
and I can grab the concept of it, but what's a parable or the Beatitudes or whatever, but then this is really truly a historical moment. This is history, and this historically happened,
right?
And so just figuring out those pieces of the Bible, and then and not taking the entire Bible literally, and saying everything is written in stone. Yeah. It's so not exactly that. It's freeing, and it's like okay, right? And we're not piecemealing stuff. We're really diving into what does that chapter mean, and then what is it in the context of it, and what does it mean in that historical time period?
Yeah.
Who probably wrote it?
Yeah.
All that's incredibly important.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are fun questions to have, and like they're questions that'll never end. Like you'll continue to have those questions. I heard a question once of how is it so Samson, right, in Judges we're told is not supposed to touch the animal of any kind of dead animal. Anything that's died, he's not allowed to touch it. But then he picks up the jawbone of a dead donkey and slaughters 1,400 people. So there's two questions. How is he allowed to do that based on the command that he's been given? But then also, what? 1,400? You just killed 1,400 people with the jawbone of a donkey. What do you do with that?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer right now, but
Yeah.
those are fun questions to ask. What do we do with that?
Right.
Right.
Because Samson clearly is used for God's glory and for the furthering of God's his plan in history, but he did that. Or like David. I mean, David clearly fails so many different times. What do we do with that?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so many different questions like that, and it's fun. I'm glad that it's a good thing to enjoy and to.
And then
and
when
to
you
take
start
pleasure
thinking of like, sorry for interrupting you.
No,
there.
no.
When you start thinking of teaching your children or in Sunday school, you're like, whew, okay, well, I have questions too. I don't, I've been there in Sunday school when kids have asked those questions, and the teachers, Danny does a great job too. It's just like, I have that question too.
Yep.
But
yeah,
freeing, like it's okay.
Yeah, there was one. I'll never forget. There was one time at youth camp. It was my first youth camp here, and a kid was coming into sixth grade, and we're walking. We have 5 minutes to get to the next thing, and he goes. Basically, I can't even exactly remember exactly how he phrased his question. He wanted a doctrine of hell in 5 minutes, and I was like, dude, there's no way. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if I figured it out yet.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there are those questions. You're like, oh my gosh. But the other great moments are the moments where they ask a question that isn't super complex, or they ask a question and then or an answer comes and then the light bulb goes off, and you see their face light up. Like that's a really fun moment too. And you're like, oh, this is so cool. Like we're doing this together. We're on this journey together. So
it's really special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the passions. Did you have more to share on top of that one? Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So the Narthex, that's our gathering place. What do you think of that name, the Narthex?
I don't know what it means.
If you listen to our podcast, you'll learn it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We had to research too, but
it's
but do you refer to it as the Narthex, don't you? Or yeah.
And Jason, tonight you're like,
What is that?
what area of the church is the Narthex? Where's that at?
Remind me again. Where's that at?
Where's the Narthex?
Yeah,
No,
just
I
right in
don't.
front of the wall.
Just our lobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our foyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If
So
I'm talking
for-
to somebody else, I'll just meet you right out there. Just
Yeah.
point it out. Right there.
That
Yeah.
space.
I know. It either sounds like a type of exotic food or like
Yeah.
an ailment. The narth.
Yeah.
You know, my narthex.
Science fiction.
Yeah.
Vortex
science
to the
fiction.
yeah.
To the
Ooh,
narthex.
the vortex and the narthex.
Yeah.
That's
That
a cool.
could have been
That's
the
a book
book.
idea.
Okay,
For
or a
sure.
book. Little
Yeah.
book.
We'll get Justin Sherritt to write a
Okay.
fun fictional novel about the narthex.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good ideas tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, as families, individuals, at our church, we just end in this way. If somebody were to come up to you, is there a good segue to start a conversation with you where, they listen to this episode, they watch it, and they want to strike up a conversation?
I tend to not be situated right in the narthex. I'm a little down the hall where the goodies are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where folks can find me. Anything is fair game. There are actually a few people at our church that work at Keyport. We know each other, give each other the wink across the fellowship hall. That comes up from time to time. I think folks are picking up on the fact that I am into strategy board games with some of the guys in the church. So if that interests anybody, they could let me know. We're heading into football season, so you can ask me how the Denver Broncos are doing. Colorado Avalanche.
We're not Seahawks fans.
Yeah.
So sorry, if you want to start a debate, that would be fine.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. All types of communication.
Well, the Seahawks fans really enjoyed the pain that your Broncos were put through
last year was hard.
Yeah.
that was fun.
hard
That was
year.
fun for us to watch.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah.
That's why I came
Yeah.
to church,
Yeah.
just to get some peace from that. No, just kidding.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, everything's it's all fair game. Rock climbing, spending time outdoors.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same for you.
Yeah, I think the younger families, we spend time past the goodies down that hallway because we're trying to keep our kids from not tripping anybody else in church. So we keep them kind of cradled in back there and let them run a little bit so they can have their space and they're
walk
not
down the art hallway.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
where they go.
right,
They
and
sit
they
at a table there.
I love
right,
it. Yes.
and then they're not running where people could get hurt. But I'm usually running around, so I don't know how to catch me. So if you can, good. I will be interested to see how all these podcasts go because I'll be happy to ask everyone else their questions and all that. So I'm with Jason. Anything's fair game.
Yeah.
So
what kind of tea are you drinking that morning?
yeah, you can. Yeah, there. You don't. Yeah, I'll ask you what type of tea, and I'll try to convert you to Earl Grey tea. Yeah. So. Yeah. Well,
If conversions happen, it will be to tea.
they'll be to
It'll be
tea.
to tea. Yeah,
Tea.
not to Jesus.
But
Yeah,
not to Jesus, but to tea. Yeah, there you go. So I don't know. Anything's fair game.
That's
Anything.
good.
We don't care.
Wonderful.
We really don't care.
We have yet to go to a Kraken game, so if people want to take us to a Kraken
Yeah.
game, that would be a good way
That's
to.
a good
to-
plan.
We did have
Woo you.
offer for some
Bring
not
some-
so great seats for
Yeah.
expensive prices, and we said no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
so-
we still have our morals about us.
We need to
Yeah.
have good seats if we're gonna. Yeah.
If you're
If
gonna
you're
go.
gonna make
We're
the
gonna go.
trek, yeah.
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 That's right, you gotta have good seats.
What could somebody ask Renata Rowan about?
Oh.
His goldfish.
He's got a goldfish, Wilbert, which is his keepsake from 5th grade. The teacher
I love
jettisoned all the fish out of the aquarium as a thank you gift
To the
to
parents.
the
In-house.
parents. So we scrambled and bought all that, got that set up, and I'm amazed that fish is still alive. But so you could ask Ron about his fish. He happens to be heading into middle school at CK, so you could ask him about his transition.
People could certainly ask him about World War II tanks.
Oh yeah.
He will, if anybody wants an hour conversation, just ask about World War II tanks.
Or if they have knowledge out there.
If they have knowledge, and maybe you can debate, whatever specifications. I can't carry on but a 2-minute conversation about it. So he gets bored with me.
So he's diving right in on his own to this kind of interest. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, he has a little computer simulator not simulator, but a builder game where he builds them and he designs his own from all the different parts and pieces of the various different World War II tanks, and he builds his own.
We're intending to go to Germany next year for summer and summer trip, and on the list is to go to a tank museum.
Right.
That's awesome.
Where he'll just chat us up nonstop about.
Right.
He'll be your tour guide.
He will be our.
He will be our tour guide in that museum.
That's great.
Right. So.
That's great. Okay. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you guys. Yeah.